Welcome to day 4 of the Tidy Tutor Daily Routine Challenge.
Now, one of the reasons that I love the image that I chose for the invitation to this challenge is because it really is that kind of a breakthrough. When you get a daily routine in place and you follow it, it is a game changer. It really does crush all of the overwhelm and the I can't do this and nobody should live this way. It really does. It crushes so much of the frustrations that we have. It's a very simple thing, and it sometimes feels like, well, why should I bother doing that? The house is such a wreck anyway. We've got to start somewhere. And this is where we want to start, with a daily routine, so that we have we have the reins in our life. Now, today we talked about laundry, we talked about dishes, um, we talked about dinner, cleaning up after dinner. Today we are going to talk about, I'm going to get out of this for a second so I could talk to you this way. All right. Today we are going to talk about why it's so important to do your daily routine and to look at it and check it off, not to do it in concept and not to just have it in your head. Super important. Now, I'm going to share my screen because I want to show you a book that I read. This was recommended a long time ago, quite a while ago, by one of my Teddy Tutor people, and it's called Stumbling on Happiness by Daniel Gilbert. Now, this is why it's so important to see your checklist and to check it off, to see your routine and to check it off. It gives you predictability. I want to talk to you about the experiments that they talk about in this book that they did about happiness and what predictability means for people. We're going to talk about right brain, left brain, and a woman named Annette Beckland, and I have her website shared down there. She works with people with Asperger's, and what it means for us to have something that we can see. Now, I'm not saying that we have Asperger's, but there was a lot to learn from having a conversation with her. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing the screen now so that I could actually talk to you. First, I think I'll talk about the Annette Beckland thing. Years ago, I lived down the shore. It's probably 2015, and I'm in a little bar or something, sitting there, happy hour, and Annette comes in. Now, I haven't seen her in 20 years. I was in high school with her. And so, you know what happens? You have conversations, say, how are you? What do you do? What do you do? And so when I told her what I did, she said, you speak my people's language. And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, there's and the whole thing about right brain, left brain, I've been talking about that for forever, since I started Tidy Tutor. Back about 10 years ago, holy smokes. So she was saying that, how the right brain people are more, creative and conceptual. Left brain people are more administrative, detail minded kind of thing. Well, she said, sometimes if there's something that is lacking up here, she said, what I've done, meaning me, is meaning me, taken what is lacking up here and put it in our hands, because we don't want to do what isn't fun. That's one of our traits. If it isn't fun, we don't want to do it. And then also, because we're not detail minded, and because we don't have that just that part of us hooked up as strong as others. We talked about this yesterday, where, like, they want to label us as ADD, and I think it's we shouldn't be labeled. I think it's a gift. It just happens that the gift that we have has some curse to it, a little bit. There's things that we need to know how to change, or what to do a little bit differently, so that the gift will be something that's used wonderfully by us, instead of having us being hindered by some of the things that is really great about us, which is one of the things we can turn on a dime. If something changes right now and we're like, in the moment of it, we can adapt very easily. Whereas organizationally gifted people, it's more difficult for them. So there's lots of things that's wonderful about us. But one of the things that isn't so wonderful about us is that we lack that left brain concept of being able to see things in a detailed fashion and in a step by step. And I know you know what I'm talking about. Have you ever walked into a room, and I know you have, that's a really big mess, and you just don't know where to start? The organizationally gifted person, they just get in there and they get going. I know you've had this happen in your life where you're, with a sister or a friend who happens to come by, and then all of a sudden everything's just getting done. And you're like, how do you do it? How do you know when and where? How do you do it? So we have that going on in us, that we could just stand somewhere and feel overwhelmed by it. Now, the routine and the plan that I have inside of Tidy Tutor University, the plan. So here, in this case, right here, what you're doing with me right now, this challenge, the routine is that what we don't have up here is now here. And what was once difficult to do now becomes easy to do, because we can check it off, because we can see what we couldn't see on our own. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Now, the predictability part about the book, Stumbling on Happiness, this is one of the things about that they learned in here. And this is why we want to see and check off it, that we don't want it to be in concept. And then I'm going to tell you a little story about what happened to me years ago, okay, with this whole thing of not having it in my face. All right. So I'll start with the predictability part of it. In this book, Stumbling on Happiness, they did an experiment. The experiment was that they had a little shock that people would get. Nothing that was dreadful. Just one group of people had a shock that was, like just a little tinge. Another group of people had a shock that was more painful than that. Not horrible, but just like a ouch kind of thing. Okay. Now, the people who had the one that was a little bit more painful with the ouch kind of thing, right? They sat in front of a computer, and there was a little countdown to each time that shock was administered. So it would be 3, 2, 1, bing, 3, 2, 1. So they always knew when it was coming. The other group of people that had the one that was just like a little, tinge, like a nothing to even speak of, right? They did not know when it was coming. They had no idea when it was coming. They would just be there, and there it would be. And then randomly another time without any pattern. And after it was over, they asked both groups to put the level of pain that they felt it was, 1 to 10, 10 being the worst, 1 being the least. And the people who had the one that was the more severe shock, they said that the pain was less than the people who had the shock that was the less severe pain. The reason that that happened was because of predictability. What they discovered is that we get happier when we know what's coming. So if life is difficult for anybody, if life is difficult, say, you live with somebody that's uh, volatile or difficult to live with, or you have a illness or something going on in your life that is not good, but you can have a predictability kind of way of living about it. Like, well, this is what happens at this time, and this is what happens at that time. If we can give ourselves a schedule during a difficult time, we're happier. We're happier living life, even when things are not so great. If we, don't have any, we don't know when something's coming, we don't know what's happening, even if it's the same, it's going to be a harder life to live. Now, here is my example that actually happened to me in real life. And this happened years before I read this book. And when I read this book, I was so happy to learn this. It was like, that's what happened. Okay, so I had been probably about 6 years into being organized. All right. At one time, if anybody doesn't know that here, I was born a slob. I could not get it together. Slob is not a bad word. Spontaneous, lighthearted, optimistic, and beloved. Okay. So I was born a slob, and I just could not get it together. My house was always a wreck. I had laundry in the bathtub overflowing because there was nowhere else to put it. Just close the curtain on it. Laundry in front of the washer. Always had to do dishes before I ate or before we needed them, because there were always dishes in the sink. The house was always in disarray. Nobody could ever come over unannounced. So that's the way I lived. right? Now I got it together. I learned what I teach you guys now. And I was about 6 years into it, living in Florida. I live in New Jersey, which is about 2,000 miles from Florida, right? 2,000 miles from Florida. And I was very, very close to my family, very, very close to my father. I had never really been away from home, and it was not easy for me. I was unhappy. My marriage was not doing well. I was pregnant with child number 5, and nobody knew it because I felt just embarrassed to tell anybody, because here our marriage was on the rocks and we were having a difficult time financially. And I just felt like, oh my God, how could I tell people I'm having another baby? Like, it was just a really, really hard time. I was lonely. I was broke. We only had one car. I do have a point to this. We only had one car and he took it to work every day. So on Fridays, I'd drive him to work so I would have the car to be able to food shop. It was just a really, really rough time for me. Okay. We were living in, oh, another one, we were living in my father-in-law's house. We moved down there right after my mother-in-law had passed away. We went there as an emotional move to be there for him. And it just seemed right at the time. And well, it wasn't, but we moved down there. We lived with him for a time. And this is when we were living with him. It was a really small house. It was very difficult. Okay. So you got that whole story. Now, I had been organized for 6 years by now. And my kids had a system. My kids had their own plan. I I didn't look at my routine anymore. I didn't look at my plan anymore. I knew what week was what, like there was a plan and a system for cleaning up the house. This is my desk day. This is my errand day. I didn't have to look at anything because it was so automatic, and my kids had jobs and all of that. So I happened to see Pam Young and Peggy Jones. That is the book that first started me on my journey in this, was called Sidetracked Home Executives. It is a great book. It is a great read. It's so funny. And it has great information in it. The system that I teach comes from that book. And so that's where the system I teach. It's evolved quite a bit since then. It was written for stay-at-home moms. To make a long story short, spoke to Pam on the phone. We are now friends. I love her. And she said, absolutely, you absolutely have permission. I let her know that I've changed quite a bit of it, but there's principles all the same. She's like, as long as it helps people, do it, just give us credit, which I always do. Okay, so there's that story. So my point to saying all of that was that here I am in Florida, and I'm watching QVC, right? That's that Home Shoppers Network. And Pam Young and Peggy Jones are on there. And I love them, right? I love them. And so of course, my ears perk up, and I see that they were selling a little, what the way it used to be was in a card box, right? It was in a card box. It was 3x5 cards. You had 1 to 31 for the days of the week. Then you had A to Z for alphabet, things in there, and you used the cards. Pink was personal, blue was weekly, every other week, like one job per card, and white was monthly. And you had all of these cards. And so what they were doing was they were selling already made card kit with a VHS tape. Yes, it was that far away. It was a long, long time ago, 1989, 91, 2, 3, 94, 1994, I think this was. So it was VHS tape, two cassette tapes, that little box already made up where, you had to file it yourself, but it had all the printed cards were all printed on it, and a booklet. And so I'm like, you know what, I'm going to get it. And so I did. I ordered it, and I don't know why I wanted to, but I just felt like it would make me happy. I really want to get it. It looks great. So I did. I got it. And then what did I do? I set it all up. Now remember, I had already been on this system for 6 years. The house ran like a clock. The house was clean. Anybody could come in at any time, go in any drawer, any cabinet, anything. My kids were on this system. Things were just going beautifully because I had memorized all that I had to do. It happened automatically. Okay. But, I got this system that came. And so what was I going to do? Of course, I was going to use it. So I took it all and I put them all in place. And I listened to their VHS tape, watched their VHS tape, and I listened to their cassettes. It was very motivating. It was so fun. And I started doing this every day. Exactly the same thing that I was doing before. Only this time I was doing it manually, I guess is a good word, physically. I was physically doing it, where before it was just in my head. Now, one of the things they said to do, which was different than they had in their original book, was rate your day. So there was one little section that they had added for just having like maybe like a little note about how the day went that day, so that your life, you could kind of look at your life on 3x5 cards and go back to that moment that was, wonderful, or you just wanted to remember or something like that. And the rate your day was, one was like you were strapped to the blades of a Cuisinart. This was their words, love them. 10 was like you just won the lottery. And 5 was like you were just drapes at the Motel 6, just hanging there, right? Um, that's the rate your day thing. So in the beginning, like I said, remember, I was very unhappy. We moved. I thought that it would be all right to move. Oh, one other thing that happened too was that my husband at the time worked for Federal Express, and this was my okay to moving, was that at the time, if any employee and their families who worked for Federal Express got to get on an airplane for $15, a specific airline. And so I'm like, all right, as long as I know I can go up to see my father whenever I need to, or whenever I want to, I'll go once a month if I want to, and as long as I can do that, that's okay. And then right after we moved, right after, they changed the rules. So that's another added thing that was making me unhappy, right? So that were why I was so miserable. And so I would say I was clinically depressed, but I didn't know it. It was really bad. So now I rated my day, and the first day, 1, 1, next day 2, next day 1, next day -1. After before 2 weeks was up, I was up to 5s, 8s, 9s. And of course, I noticed this. I'm like, wow, I rated today a 5. I mean, remember what I said, -1 I was at in the beginning. What had changed? Nothing had changed in my world. I was still living in a small apartment. I was still living at my father-in-law's house. I was still married to the same man who I was having trouble with. We still were flat broke. I still lived thousands of miles away from my family. I still didn't have a car during the week. I was still pregnant with child number 5 that nobody knew about. All right. This was all still my reality. Yet my days went from 1 to 5 to 9 in a matter of 2 weeks. What changed? What changed was I now had the reins of my life. It is a crazy thing, but I'm telling you, it happened. And then when I read this book, I understand it. I had control over my life. I felt like each day, each one of my days, I was in charge of. Even though before it was happening rote by rote, it was just happening automatically. Same exact things were happening. I didn't get cleaner. I didn't get more organized. But the part of me that lacked up here, that I needed to feel in solidity, was now there in front of me. So that's the reason why it's so important to see your list and to do it without memory, without thinking that, oh yeah, I know what to do next. Oh, I know what to do next. Yeah, maybe you do. But I'm telling you that this is real. And since I read that book, it made me so happy that I could actually put my finger on it. That's what happened. That's what happened. Same negative circumstances. But now I know what to expect each day. It's on paper. I'm practicing it. I decided this is what I'm doing now. This is what I'm doing now. This is what I'm doing next. This is what I'm doing next. Very, very powerful. So that was that. And I think that what's really, really important for us to know is the why. Why are we doing it? Years ago, I read a book. I think it was Think and Grow Rich, I think it was, or it might have been The Master Key, I think, The Master Key. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And I read the first chapter, and I read it with a friend. In the first chapter, it said that you need to get quiet, you need to meditate, you need to be able to be still and quiet without, just be still And they said, work up to 15 minutes and more, but start with just 1 minute. And so I was sitting there, and a minute felt like an hour. I couldn't do it. Now, there's two things there. One, they didn't explain why. And two, they didn't explain how. So without knowing how, like I thought I had to shut off my thoughts. I thought I had to shut off my brain. It said, sit quiet for start with 1 minute. Well, how do you sit quiet? Your thoughts are still going. Later, I understood that you allow the thoughts to go. You just notice the thoughts. You notice the thoughts, you release the thought. You notice the thought, you release the thought. Whatever comes in, you release the thought. That's it. You might want to say a mantra, so that you might say, like, om, or anything. God, God, Jesus, Jesus, love, love, love. It just helps to focus your mind more so that it's not all over the place. But that was one thing. And the other thing was why? Why was I doing it? And when I read more about what meditation does for people, what being still and quiet does for people, everything changed for me. Now I could do it. When we have our why, we will do what it is that at first was very difficult. So I'm hoping that explaining this to you, why you need to have a routine, see it and do it, why you need to, will help you to actually stick to it, because we need a why so that we can stick to things. Now, before I sign out for this day, we're going to share my screen again, and we're going to look at the daily routine that we have. Okay, this is what I have, what I've suggested, and you can make it smaller or larger if you have a dog, if you have to do something with your children, if you make lunch or for something, if you whatever it is you got to do, right? You could add to it or you could take away. Okay, so here it was the morning. Up on time, you determine a time, and remember, we talked about this on the first day. What time will you go to sleep? What time will you wake up? Remember, that can change. All of this can change. Nothing is written in stone. And I had one comment on YouTube, and the woman said, I've tried challenges before and they've been very difficult. I've never been able to stick to them. And here I go. I'm going to try it. I'm getting my pen and paper. And when we just start something, we're not good at it. Why do we think we're going to be good at something we just started, or we're not good at now? And now we're going to start it and we think we're going to be good at it right away. That's why they call it practice. So if you're one of those people that you feel like, oh, I keep falling off, don't look at it that way. Look at it as, I am practicing. When you practice, you fall down. If you're ice skating or roller skating, learning how to walk, learning how to ride a bike, right? You fall down in the beginning. You're learning a guitar, say you're learning an instrument. You're going to hit a lot of sour notes. If we quit as soon as we don't do it good, we know that doesn't work. In this case, we feel like we have to. Here, you know what? I'm going to get out of this really quickly so I can talk to you in real life. In this case, we feel like we have to be good at it right away because this is easy. Everybody's supposed to know that. It's a concept that really isn't true. Being organized is a learned skill. And if you're not good at it now, then you're going to have to practice. When you practice, you don't get it right away, right? It takes some time. So give yourself the time, give yourself the grace, allow yourself to not get it right, and allow yourself to see that maybe you just need to change some things. A lot of times what we do as organizationally challenged people is we'll look within and think, oh, it's got to be me. I'm this, I'm that. Where the organizationally gifted people, they look outside of themselves and they say, oh, something isn't quite right. What do I need to change? See? So stop making yourself wrong. All right. All right. So now we're just going to really quickly go over that list so that there. Okay. We're going to just go over this list. All right. Up on time, make bed, drink water, clothes and dryer, set the timer, shower, dress, hair, face, pajamas away, coffee. Now, if you drink coffee, of course, while the coffee's coming down or the water's boiling for tea, put the dishes away, make and eat breakfast, clean up your breakfast, get clothes out of the dryer, put clothes away. Now, if you did yesterday's, then your dishes are done. If you haven't gotten there yet to video number 2, day number 2, then you will get to it, and then your dishes will be done. And this part will be super easy. Plus, yesterday we talked about how to make it that they keep things, don't make any more babies, that we actually have the motivation to clean up after dinner, which is coming up next. Now, in the evening, check calendar, make to-do list. Now, the make to-do list and check calendar, remember we talked about this too. If you don't have a calendar right now, it's okay, but you do know what's you got to do tomorrow. So you're going to think, what do I have to do tomorrow? Do I have an appointment? Do I have to do something? Do I have to go somewhere? Do I have to make a phone call? Do I have a class I'm showing up for? Whatever it is, you'll set that up. You'll make the list that you need to make, so that you know that you won't leave anything out of the things that you need to do based on what you have to do tomorrow, and you'll do that. Okay, check calendar, make to-do list, put things by the door, anything that you need to take out with you so that it's easy and you don't forget anything. Make dinner, eat. Now we added this one, clean up dinner. Clean up dinner. So after dinner, you're going to clean up. After dinner, you're going to do the dishes. Okay, dishes done. Prepare for bed, brush teeth, clothes away or in hamper. Now, prepare for bed is kind of like a category. We're going to prepare for bed. What is the process of preparing for bed? Brush teeth, clothes away or in hamper, wash load of clothes, all dishes done, bed on time. What is that time? Write the time down and then work with this as you go. You know, continue to have this evolve. All right. All right. So that's that for day 4. And then we'll meet again on Friday. Okay. I would suggest rewatch from my blog rather than on the Facebook page, because this way it's way more condensed and you'll get to the point quicker without all the other stuff. And also on the blog, there's the link to each one, so you don't have to scroll or anything like that. It might be a good idea to play it in the background while you're getting some stuff done, to reiterate and to help you to remember and stay motivated and to get the things done that you need to get done. Let's see, Brenda said, for me now and for others in the future, I sure appreciate your personal Florida story and how the cards and self-rating made a difference. I often feel like such a failure that I can't get my basics done. Thank you for the emphasis on giving ourselves grace and time to get better with patience. I keep telling myself, no more babies. Yeah, no more babies, you know. Now in Tiny Tutor University, we have something we call Count Mississippi's. So I think I mentioned this before during this our time together. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. The reason we do that is because we have a warped perception of time. We think everything takes way longer than it actually does. So instead of us saying, all right, I can't do that, I don't have time. No, I have time. 1 Mississippi, 2, and then discover it took 10 seconds. It took 10 seconds. There's so many things that almost everything we have to do is 5 minutes or less. We just need a plan. Doesn't that make sense? We just need a plan. But when we've been beaten down for so long, when we've been told you're supposed to know this, why can't you do this? It's as ludicrous as saying, why can't you speak Japanese like your friend can? Why can't you speak Italian like your friend can? Did you ever learn Japanese or Italian? If you didn't, we should not expect them to know it. And this is really the same thing. All right, so remember, if you have any questions, please tag me in the comment, because Facebook will show me that somebody has commented and then I can't find the comment. It doesn't bring me right to it for some freaking reason. So if you tag me, I think that would make it be much different. I think it'll take me right to it. So if I haven't answered your question, please, you know, retype it or something like that. You could even private message me. All right. Okay, so I'll see you tomorrow. Keep going. You got this. Thanks for being in my world. Bye.